Hello everyone and welcome to The Extraordinary Power of Split Loot. That's not just a clickbait headline, though it is, but it actually is extraordinary. The concept of split loot is super duper powerful, and I wish I saw it more in some of the bases that come out of YouTube. This base incorporates split loot, and it allows you to make a base that's really strong, but the upkeep is relatively low. So take a look at this base. It's a 2x2 in the center. It's got some honeycomb around it, but then it has these square rooms positioned along the four corners. And that's intentional. These are the four loot rooms of the base. But what makes this base different from some of the others you've probably seen is how the loot rooms are used. First we go into the front door. Nothing special about this, and again, this is just a proof of concept base. You can build this base exactly like this, or you can just use the concept to design something of your own. Up top, there's some auxiliary loot rooms for your wood armor and wetsuits and revolvers and stuff like that you get at the beginning of the wipe. And then once you go down in here, this is the main living area of the base and where the magic begins to happen. So you can see that the first of those square loot rooms is right here, and there's no door to it. It's armored, there's an armored wall here, and there's drop boxes. That's intentional. That's because you can't get to it through a door. You can only get to it by suiciding and spawning into the sleeping bag. You can see this is what the actual inside of the room looks like. And then you'd store your really good loot in these boxes here. And then you come over here, and there's another one. It's just like it. You can set up the inside however you'd like. You can use barbecues or small boxes, or obviously you want to put your TC in one of these. And then you keep going, and there's yet another one. I believe this one is the vending machine. You can set it up something like this if you'd like. You can put the small boxes on the top. And even after that, there is yet a fourth one. A fourth loot room. Completely surrounded, it's armored, and no matter which way you attack this loot room, it's going to be 15 or 16 rockets to get into it. Then we have all of these other smaller loot rooms for everyday living materials. These are going to be your kits, your enough guns to help you get out there and roam and farm and PvP or whatever you'd like, but it's just your everyday materials. And what makes this base so strong, again, is the concept of split loot. Think about how you would raid this base. If you were to see this base on the outside, you're probably going to think that this metal here is honeycomb, and it's going to be easiest to go through the doors. And that'd be a safe assumption. There's a couple of sheet metal doors, and down the ladder hatch, and you're in. If you go this way, you're already getting that juicy wetsuit loot. So once you get down here, you're faced with a decision. You know, you're going to have to blow the garage doors here. Once you blow them, and you can splash them, obviously, which is not that big of a deal, but you're going to come across the first armored wall. And once you blow these two doors and you find this armored wall, you're probably going to go this way and see what the rest of the base is about. You don't know anything about the base yet. And then you're going to find the second one, the second armored wall loot room. And then you're going to find the third one, and then you're going to find the fourth one. And now the raider has a decision to make. They know that if they're going to blow this wall here with rockets, it's not going to splash this one at all. It's not going to splash this one. It's not going to splash this one. If they use C4, it's not going to splash. There's no way to splash all four of these loot rooms at once. So the raider has to make a decision. Once I've uncovered the layout of this base, am I willing to use between 60 and 80 rockets to get what's in these loot rooms? And for a 2x2, the answer is probably no. No, they're not willing to do that. They'll take what's in these loot rooms that are behind the garage doors here, and they're probably just going to leave. And that's the power behind split loot, is if you keep 25% of your loot, a quarter of your loot in each of these loot rooms, there's no way for the raider to get all of your main loot in one fell swoop. A lot of the base designs I see on YouTube, they all have the same problem where, yes, they're well designed, but if the raider makes it to the main loot area and they have enough rockets to get to the main loot area, they just get all your stuff, and that's that. That is that. But in this space, there's no such thing. There is no main loot area. The main loot area is divided into 4 areas that cannot be splashed efficiently. There's just no way to do it. If you attack from the outside, there's no splash. If you attack from the inside, there's no splash. If you C4 and get one of the loot rooms, you only got 25% of the loot. So you have this small base that's really tight and compact, and the upkeep is super low in comparison to some of the other bases I've seen. Let me show you what it is. We're talking about 3.5k metal, 1500 stone, and 76 high qual. I know the high qual is a little high, but for a duo or a trio, it's going to be fine. For a solo, it'll be difficult. I'll be honest with that. But what you get from this is a 60 to 80 rocket base that has that low of upkeep. And it's all because the loot is separated into these 4 rooms. Not separated by garage doors, not separated by regular doors or reinforced windows, but by armored walls that take 15 rockets to go through. This base is so efficient that I decided to put it into a calculator. Evil Worse has been kind enough to share his base efficiency spreadsheet, and I put this base, which I don't like giving bases names, but if I have to give it, I'm going to call it the Benjamin Sploot Looterator. And I put it into the spreadsheet. And this spreadsheet calculates the efficiency based on what the upkeep of the base is and how many rockets it takes to get to the TC and the main loot. So you can see here that we have the rockets to TC in column C, the rockets to main loot in column D, and it's roughly 45 rockets to get the TC. Unless they're cheating using an ESP program that lets them see through the wall, it's probably going to be, they probably won't get it the first loot room they go through, but if they go through a second one, we'll just give it to them. So let's just say roughly 45 rockets once they get the doors down and into 2 of those loot rooms. To get main loot, it's going to be more like 80 rockets. And that does seem high, but it's really not. If someone's going to raid that base, and I've raided it myself a number of times now, if you go through the doors, it's going to be 80 plus rockets. Just getting the doors down, the garage doors down, and having a way to get to those 4 loot rooms, just to be able to access them, you're going to spend somewhere in the realm of 80 rockets. And you can see that some of the other bases in the list here, they're similar. One of them here is 60 rockets to the TC, and then 90 rockets for the main loot. This one is 39 rockets to TC, 96 to main loot. And then some of the ones up here, 57 and 45. But what's important to note in comparison to Benjamin's Split Looterator is the upkeep and scrap. Evil Worse has converted the upkeep for these bases into a scrap value, which is just awesome. This base only costs 843 scrap per day in upkeep compared to some of these others. Look at some of the other bases that are similar in comparison. This one, 57 and 45, it costs 1700 scrap per day in upkeep. This one, the Frustrator X Plus here, 4,750 scrap per day in upkeep, and the Rockets to TC and Rockets to Main are very similar to the base that I've created. And I'm not trying to diss any of the bases on here, and especially not Evil Worse. I'm just trying to show the extraordinary power of split loot. You can also see the scrap upkeep for each rocket to the TC, and the scrap upkeep for rockets for the main loot. You can see that the Benjamin Split Looterator takes 10 scrap upkeep per rocket for main loot, while some of the others take, 2, 3, 4, 5 times that. So in terms of efficiency, this base, it doesn't get much better than that. Obviously, you're going to get some lower upkeep and more efficient bases, but it's going to be the ones that are super duper small. And that's just because of how the Rust tax system works for upkeep. The smaller the bases, the less percentage-wise you have to pay in upkeep for your resources. So smaller bases are just inherently easier to upkeep. They're also less secure. So you can see by the numbers here how efficient this base is. It's not all unicorns and rainbows, I'll admit that. Some things about this base are, I guess I'll call them cons, if you're going to use this. First, it does get kind of annoying having to suicide to get into your main loot. And especially if you're playing solo or duo or trio and not everybody's on at the same time to help. So it is kind of annoying having to continually suicide if you need to access some of your main loot. One workaround for that is you don't have to dump all of your main loot into these 4 safe rooms the moment you get it. Just do it before you log off, or maybe, 2 or 3 times a day if you're going to have a big marathon gaming session. So before you log off, if you have, say, 20 gears, just put 15 of them in one of the safe areas. If you have 5 AKs, then put 4 of them in the main area. So you want to leave some of your loot out here and for everyday activities, so you don't have to keep suiciding just to get the things that you need. If you do build a base like this, make sure that you have external TCs. Have the external TCs built out here. That's super duper important. It allows you to reclaim the base if someone raids it. And if you do build a base like this, what's probably going to happen is they're going to raid it, and they're only going to partially raid it. They're either going to blow one loot room and get a quarter of your loot and then leave, or they may just blow these everyday living loot rooms and not even bother. They're saturating you, and they're like, yeah, no dog, I'm going to pass on those armored walls. But you want your base back, right? So if you want your base back, you need to protect it with external TC so that they can't grief it. If they do happen to get your TC, you want to be protected from that. This base doesn't have a shooting floor. That's intentional. Just a brief note on the shooting floors from my own experience. Shooting floors, you can add one to this base if that's your thing, if you like PvPing outside of your base and you like constant PvP action on your base. But from my encounters in Rust, PvP and shooting floors added to your base usually get you raided. How many times have y'all been playing Rust and you join a server and you see that big Chad base off in the distance and it has an amazing shooting floor on it? And there's, continually guys crawling around the shooting floor just looking for action. And then 3 days later, where's that base at? It's gone. They're blown off the server. Done. And it's because shooting floors tell the whole server that you mean business. You're here to murder, you're here to raid, you're here for PvP action, and you're a threat. But some people, that's just their playstyle. So if you want to add that, go ahead. But I'm just giving you some perspective on why I haven't added it to this base. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed the concept of split loot, let me know in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, I'd really appreciate that. If you want to see a video trying to get around a specific building problem in Rust, or advice on maybe a starter base, or what's a good way to protect loot in certain scenarios, just let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to do a video on it. Thanks, and I hope everybody has happy holidays.